This is going to be extraordinary couple of months ahead of us as we see the future of the presidency determined by a small handful of people deciding who's going to run against Donald Trump this November instead of Joe Biden. But that's why they're making such a big show out of this physical. That's why it's happening right now. This is where it begins. And it may be so drastic, and there may be so much internal fighting going on right now that they might have to have him step down from the presidency itself. Joe Biden today left the White House, headed over into Marine One, and took a helicopter ride to Bethesda for Walter Reed Medical Center. He is getting a physical exam. Here's the scene at the White House just a few moments ago.
Mr. President, Mr. President, what came out of your meeting with Speaker Johnson? Mr. President.
Yeah. Don't you wonder what's in the cardboard cup? Why is the President of the United States getting a coffee to go? Or is it tea? Or is it maybe the little energy booster he needs before his cognitive test? Only his doctor knows for sure. Also, look at the little trot here he does. He does this little trot thing all the time. Look how active I am. Oh, I'm spent. That's your president of the United States. And he is, yes, heading in for his physical, finally. And it was asked of Karine Jean-Pierre earlier whether this physical would involve a cognitive test as well, and when you or I might be able to see the results. It seems like just the bare minimum to ask, doesn't it?
Any updates on when the president's physical might be taking place?
So he will have a physical when we have information on that. So obviously, we will certainly share that with all of you. It will be transparent. There will be a comprehensive report as.
Can I just pause here for a second? Because this was yesterday. Yesterday, she was asked, when will the president have a physical? And she said, when we know, we'll let you know. We want to be fully transparent. Are you telling me that the president's schedule is so wide open that they basically decided late last night to schedule his physical at Walter Reed? You're telling me that she didn't know about this yesterday while she's talking about how transparent they're going to be? Was this just a last-minute decision? Do you know what it takes to get Walter Reed ready for the commander-in-chief to show up for a physical? What kind of screening has to go on with Secret Service? Yes, it's a secure military hospital. But this is the president of the United States. You're telling me that in advance they didn't already know that this morning he was going for a physical? That's a little odd, isn't it? When we know, we'll make sure that we tell you in full transparency. Oh, I'm so sorry. That wasn't yesterday? Kevin, interrupt me anytime I make that big of a... When was this then? Let me know. Oh, this was 2 weeks ago. I so apologize. God, I wish I could start over. I'm sorry. It's because Karine Jean-Pierre has, just a couple of different outfits, and I just assumed this was yesterday. All right, so 2 weeks ago, they were asked about the physical. That makes me feel better. That makes me feel a lot better, in fact, I suppose. Except look at how the exchange goes here in terms of reporters. Again, this is after the Robert Hur statement that said that the president of the United States doesn't have the mental capacity to defend himself in court. And listen to the hostility in this exchange about the president's health, and especially his mental health.
We have done the last 2 years, just don't have a timeline for you.
Do you plan on the press getting a heads up before the physical happens, or will we find out once it has taken place?
We're going to do it the way that we've done it the last 2 years. It's not going to be anything different. So the way that we've approached this the last 2 years will be the same way that we do this this year, this third year.
Does the White House think that the idea of the president taking a cognitive test as a part of this physical is a legitimate idea, particularly just on the heels of the special counsel report, more polling, as my colleague Selena just mentioned, showing that many American people have concerns about that?
Look, I got this question last week as well, and I'm just going to say what Dr. O'Connor, it's kind of what he said to me about a year ago when the report came out last year, obviously on his physical, which is the president proves every day how he operates, how he thinks, right?
Yeah. He sure does prove it every day. We see it every day. In fact, it's material right here, sometimes humorous material, but most of the time terrifying material. Yeah, he proves exactly how he operates every day. That's not really a direct answer to the question, is it? Also, did you notice how she's citing the fact that she's able to ask the president's physician, Dr. O'Connor, about the president's health, about his abilities. She can follow up and ask questions of the doctor. She can challenge the doctor. She can get details. She's the White House communications director, and or the press secretary, she's able to actually engage with Joe Biden's doctor. Guess who isn't allowed to do that? You're not allowed to do that. Neither are your representatives on Capitol Hill. Neither are your de facto representatives in the media. Theoretically, they ask questions on behalf of the American people. They're speaking truth to power. This whole pretense of transparency and accessibility, and of course we'll let you know, of course. How come Karine Jean-Pierre gets to talk to the president's doctor, but we, through our representatives or through the media, we don't get to talk to the president's doctor? Why is that?
But by dealing with world leaders, by making really difficult decisions on behalf of the American people, whether it's domestic, whether it's national security. And so he shows it every day on how he thinks, how he operates. And so that is how the Dr. O'Connor sees it. And that's how I'm going to leave it.
What do you think about the idea of taking that kind of a test?
I mean, look, and I talked about this last week too on I believe on Friday. I have known this president since 2009. He is not just my boss, but, he's also a mentor to me. And I spent sometimes countless hours with him, whether it's in the Oval Office, whether it's on the road. And I believe, for me, you're asking me my personal opinion, he is sharp. He is on top of things.
I just want to be clear here. The question was not about her personal opinion. Please, Karine, tell me what you think of the president's abilities and his cognitive competency. No, that wasn't the question. The question was, what do you think about the president taking a cognitive test? Hey, everybody, Karine Jean-Pierre assures you that Joe Biden's just fine. She's worked with him since 2009. He's a mentor to her, so she wouldn't lie. This is outrageous that this is even tolerated in the press room, considering how they behaved when it was Kayleigh McEnany or Sarah Huckabee Sanders or Sean Spicer at that podium. They're so polite, and they take this garbage that's ladled to them like it's a turkey dinner. The question is, what do you think of the president taking a cognitive test right now? Considering the fact a U.S. attorney just filed a document in a U.S. federal court saying that he's incapable because of his memory lapses of defending himself in a criminal trial. And her answer is, listen, I've worked with him. He seems fine to me.
I have meetings with him, with his staff. He's constantly pushing us, trying to get more information. And so that has been my experience with this president. Anything else outside of that, I just shared with you what Dr. O'Connor said to me. And so I'll just leave it there.
I feel better. I know you do too. All right. One more question and a follow-up there at that press briefing, specifically about the cognitive test, because this entire physical exam, well, I'll get to my speculation on what's really going on at Walter Reed in just a second here.
Doctor, when can we talk to the president's doctor, and how come they haven't been asked to come out here and talk with us, given the Her report that challenges the president's mental fitness?
So look, just to speak to the Her report really, really quickly. Special Counsel Her is, as far as I remember, is obviously a Republican, a prosecutor. He's not a medical doctor. He's just not.
So bring the medical doctor out. Do you like how she starts with Robert Hur is a Republican? So, right there, you know how they are. Feel the unity here brought to us by President Unity. President, bring us all together. President, heal our wounds. Well, here's the first thing you need to know about Robert Hur. He's a freaking Republican. So, he should burn in hell. These people are detestable, honestly. They really are. But understand, the question was, and it seems kind of legit. Mr. Hur, the U.S. attorney, just filed a document in federal court saying that the president is incapable of defending himself because of his horrible memory. Why can't we talk to his doctor about that? And suddenly it becomes a partisan attack on the U.S. attorney, which last I checked, when Donald Trump does it, it threatens our very democracy.
It's not for him to speak to. It's just not. And you've heard from over the past couple of days since the report has been out, you've heard from legal experts from across the ideological spectrum, even former attorney general. And he says, and they have come out to say that the stuff in this report that is capturing all of your attention right now is just wrong. It's flatly wrong. It is inappropriate. It is gratuitous. And so going to leave that there. And it is obviously up for a medical doctor to decide on that. But look, I have said the medical doctor, the president's doctor is going to do a physical. He's going to, and he has always put forth in the last 2 years a detailed memo on the president's obviously medical physical. And so I'm just going to leave it there. I don't have anything else to add. Go ahead.
God, she's good. Listen, here's what's happening. Dr. O'Connor, who's doing the physical now, apparently the president's doctor, you just heard he's going to put out a detailed memo explaining exactly what the president's health is. And there's no word as to whether he'll take a cognitive test or not. But here's what's going to happen. We know Joe Biden's not going to be the nominee in November. I think that's been determined. The only question is how they get out of this, how they get him off the ticket, whether he fully resigns from the office right now or not, or whether he just decides he's not up for 4 more years. They have to wait, I think, until after Super Tuesday, which is coming up next Tuesday. And then they'll be able to say, well, it's too far into the primary and caucus process to let the people decide who the Democrats' nominee should be. So we'll take that up at the convention. And I think in this doctor's report, they're going to find something. It'll have nothing to do with his cognitive abilities. They can't concede that. They can't concede the fact that what you and I see on a regular basis is true and reality. They have to keep the facade, the lie going. They'll never, ever admit what you know to be true, partly because they can't possibly concede that he should have never been put up for office in the first place and certainly shouldn't continue in office. And also, secondly, I think that they actually get a cheap, gross thrill out of lying to you to your face and forcing you to take it because you can't do anything about it. But they're going to find something. This is going to be extraordinary couple of months ahead of us as we see the future of the presidency determined by a small handful of people deciding who's going to run against Donald Trump this November instead of Joe Biden. But that's why they're making such a big show out of this physical. That's why it's happening right now. This is where it begins. This is where, and it may be so drastic, and there may be so much internal fighting going on right now that they might have to have him step down from the presidency itself so that Kamala Harris can assume the throne and run as an incumbent president rather than as a punchline vice president. Because the kind of luster and honeymoon that she's going to get from being the first Black woman president in American history, that kind of media wave that she'll get over the next several months could, in fact, push against the obvious negatives that people feel about her and help her out in November. And if it's not her, well, that's the internal fight that's going on right now. But ultimately, that's what's happening. And it's happening right before your very eyes. And you can tell how much they're lying about it because they stutter every single moment they can. I mean, look at Karine Jean-Pierre. She's paid to speak. It's her job.
On the president's obviously medical physical. And so I'm just going to leave it there. I don't have.
Yeah, she sounds genuine. She seems like she's telling the truth. No indication there that she's hiding anything. Just watch. That's what's happening.